Hello, I'm Neil Nunes with the BBC News. President Biden and the Republican leader of the U.S. House of Representatives, Kevin McCarthy, have said they've held productive talks on federal debt. Mr. McCarthy said that negotiators had been instructed to meet again to find common ground. More now from our North America business correspondent, Michelle Fleury.
Sources say the White House is now offering to keep spending flat from this year to next, while Republicans, they say they want to increase defense spending while cutting everything else by up to 22%. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen confirmed over the weekend that June 1st is the hard deadline when the government can no longer pay its bills. And the deadline for a deal may actually be sooner, in order for it to pass the House and Senate in time. And there's another worry. Even if they do get a deal done in time, will rank-and-file members of both parties go for it? The impact of defaulting would be felt by everyone.
Russian officials say the army is fighting a group of saboteurs who crossed the border from Ukraine in the Belgorod region. Explosions, columns of smoke and gunfire have been reported throughout the day. Vitaly Shevchenko is following developments.
The governor of Russia's Belgorod region, Vyacheslav Gladkov, has said that at least 8 people have been injured, and he said there have been no fatalities among the civilian population. One of the videos, unverified I have to say, appears to show a dead Russian bodyguard. Ukraine says it has nothing to do with this attack. The presidential advisor, Mikhailo Podolyak, says that it's all being done by Russian citizens and, I quote, tanks are sold at any Russian military store.
Reports from Sudan say a week-long ceasefire has been violated as soon as it came into force. In Khartoum, witnesses say they've seen airstrikes and clashes. In the cities of Omdurman and Bari, which adjoined the capital, people said they'd heard gunfire. Steve Jackson reports.
This is just the latest of a series of ceasefire deals, none of which have previously taken hold. The difference this time is that it resulted from formal talks, brokered by Saudi Arabia and the US, between the two Sudanese military factions that have plunged the country into conflict. More than 1 million people have fled their homes since the conflict began. The signs so far suggest that both warring parties want the total military defeat of their rivals at almost any cost.
The grave of Mahsa Amini, the young Kurdish Iranian woman who died in custody last September, has been vandalized. Her family said a glass pane covering her portrait has been smashed. Miss Amini died after being arrested for allegedly breaking the country's Islamic dress code. This is the latest world news from the BBC. The Chinese-owned video-sharing app TikTok is taking legal action to overturn its ban in the U.S. state of Montana. In the lawsuit, TikTok says the Montana legislation violates the Constitution by removing a forum for free speech. Legislators believe the Chinese government could use the app for surveillance and acquiring information. TikTok denies it shares data with the authorities in Beijing. The Colombian government has suspended a truce with a dissident rebel group following the murder of 4 young indigenous people in the south of the country. The victims had been forcefully recruited by the rebels and were killed as they tried to escape. Leonardo Russia has more details.
President Gustavo Petro said there was no justification for what he described as an atrocious crime. He announced that all offensive military action against the group, known as Carolina Ramirez, would now be resumed in the 4 regions where they're active. The rebels are dissidents from the FARC, which was Colombia's largest armed group until it signed a historic peace agreement in 2016. Hundreds of their members rejected the terms of the agreement and continued to fight. Mr. Petro took office last year, promising to engage in peace talks with all rebel and criminal organizations. So far, he's had limited success.
The Brazilian government has declared a state of animal health emergency after confirming 5 cases of avian flu in wild birds. The Agriculture Ministry said the measure would make it easier to implement measures to stop the spread of the highly infectious H5N1 virus. Commercial flocks have not been affected. The Italian football club Juventus has been given a 10-point deduction as a punishment for illegal transfer activity. It pushes Juventus out of the European Champions League qualifying positions in the Italian league. That's the latest BBC World News.